evening and welcome. Again, good evening and welcome to the Department of Veterans Affairs second annual virtual town hall meeting in collaboration with Operation Sisterhood. I'm your host, Jennifer Meyers, Change Management Agent, Management Analyst, and proud employee of the Newark Regional Office. This evening, we will hear from several key personnel from the Department of Veterans Affairs who provide key information on various topics on services, benefits, plus. At this time, I would ask that you please, if you have not already, mute your devices, as well as turn your cameras off. This will save the bandwidth. Again, if you're not a presenter, I'm asking that you please mute your device, as well as place your camera in the off position. We're asking that only the presenters, as they are presenting, be shown. This presentation is being recorded. Therefore, we are asking that all hold off on any questions that you may have until the last presentation is made. This way we can be sure to keep your information private. It is for your benefit. We do not want you to disclose any personal information during question and answers. So we are going to ask that you refrain from asking any questions until the last presentation, at which the recording will stop, and then we can have free-flowing dialogue. Tonight, we're going to have opening remarks from some of our key senior officials. Then we will have presentations from Veterans Benefits Administration. We will hear from Veterans Readiness and Employment, VA Newark Regional Office Human Resources, the Pension Management Center, National Cemetery Administration, the New Jersey Department of Military and Veterans Affairs, as well as the Vet Center Services. Again, at the conclusion of all presentations, we will then open the floor for questions and answers. Without any further ado, I'd like to introduce my director, Director Francis-Abdullah, from the Newark Regional Office. Madam Director, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jennifer. Good evening, everyone. As Jennifer stated, my name is Delasia Francis-Abdullah, and I am the Director of the Newark Regional Veterans Benefits Administration. I want to start off by wishing you all peace, love, healing, and many blessings. I hope that you've enjoyed these summer months and that you had some opportunities to spend time with your loved ones, and that while you were doing so, that you took the time to really take care of yourselves wholeheartedly. I thank you for your service, your time, dedication to our nation, and your daily contributions. Please know that it is my absolute pleasure to be here with you this evening. It is my pleasure to be a part of this esteemed group of colleagues who make a conscious decision every day to be of service to you and your families because of your service to us. The Department of Veterans Affairs has many focuses, but just to name a few, it is to make sure that we are providing world-class care to all of you because you are deserving of it. But more specifically, we want to make sure at the department that we are providing mental health services to help aid in the prevention of suicide, to reduce homelessness, to recruit new employees who have the talent, the skill, and the will to work with you and your families. We also want to maintain our current employees and their positions so that they can ensure that we are listening to you and that we're taking action based on with the feedback that you're giving to us. We consider ourselves to be what we call a high reliability organization. And so that means, once again, that we're continuously listening to you because your voice does matter. Your needs are our concerns, and we are reviewing lessons learned. And we're wanting to make sure that we're incorporating some of those best practices across our enterprise to improve your experience. So please provide us with feedback. We need to hear from you more and about your interactions. And like I stated before, your experience with the Department of Veterans Affairs, especially here at the Newark Regional Office. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it back over to Jennifer. But before I do so, I want you all to know, the presenters, that I do look forward to hearing your presentations. And I look forward to our continued collaborations in service to our nation's veterans, service members, and their families. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you, Madam Director. And I'm going to take a point of personal privilege to say this. The Newark Regional Office, not only is it high performing, not only is it highly reliable, but we have veterans serving veterans. So we have veterans we have individuals who have served and then continue to serve veterans through the VA, I being one of them. So it is a pleasure for us to serve those who have served. Next, we will hear from the Executive Director of Operation Sisterhood, Ms. Meyers.
Hello, Jennifer, and hello to everyone. Welcome. Thank you for taking the time out to join us tonight. Please enjoy the presentations, and I'm going to pass it back over to Jen.
Thank you. At this time, we're going to have greetings from the Chair of the New Jersey Military and Veterans Affairs Committee, Assemblywoman Cleopatra Tucker. Madam Chair, the floor is yours. Assemblywoman Tucker.
Okay. Good evening.
There you go.
It's a pleasure for me to be here because every time I participate in these meetings, I learn so much more than, about what our needs are for our veterans. And I'll be happy to share the experience I'll be having with you tonight with other people. And I'll continue to support Sisterhood and the VA. And Jennifer, who she's the awesome person. She's brought me into the fold.
Thank you. No, you brought me in. So thank you. Thank you, ma'am. So this evening, we're going to start off with the Veterans Benefits Administration. Scott Kearny, who is a member of the Newark Regional Office. The floor is yours.
Hey, good evening. Thank you, Jennifer. My name is Scott Kearny. I'm one of the supervisors at the Veterans Service Center in Newark, New Jersey. I'm here tonight with my Assistant Veterans Service Center Manager, Brian McGowan, who is also on the call. And I believe, Brian, if you have a presentation, I can turn this over to you.
Yes, thank you, Scott. So can you go to the next slide, Jennifer? So
got it.
Thank you. So there's two main topics I want to talk about tonight. It's PACT Act and Service Connection. With the VA structure, you have the VBA, the VHA, and the cemetery. Here in Newark, I'm part of the VBA, where we mainly process claims for compensation. So on this slide here, you see that Newark has 14 counties of jurisdiction, the northern and central Jersey. Southern New Jersey jurisdiction is Philadelphia. Because of the location, it can better serve our veterans down there. However, I should say that in today's world, we're very virtual. The days of paper folders are behind us. So although we focus on New Jersey veterans, we also work claims for veterans across the nation, thanks to moving the way of virtual, where we can work in a program called VBMS. And there's also a group called National Work Queue that will move cases to each regional office where they feel that that office can look at a case more timely than another. The next slide, please. Okay, so with disability compensation, you must have an other than dishonorable discharge. So there's 4 types of ways that you could be service connected, and that is direct, secondary, presumptive, or aggravation. So we only have 10 minutes, so I'll try to break it down as quick as I can. So direct service connection is you file a claim for, say, a knee injury, and it happened in service. It was documented in service. It's still hurting you after service. Okay, great. You can get direct service connection for that after we review the medical evidence and it shows that you do have a medical condition and it did result from service. Presumptive service connection is something that we presume happened due to service. A popular one is diabetes mellitus type 2 due to Agent Orange exposure during the Vietnam era. Generally, when I first started, it was if there was evidence that you were in Vietnam, we presumed that you were exposed to Agent Orange. If you had a diagnosis of diabetes mellitus type 2, you would get service connected for it, presumptively. And so the third option is secondary service connection. If you're service connected for any disability, it doesn't matter if it's aggravation, direct, or presumptive, and you have another medical condition that's a result of that service connection disability, you could get secondary service connection. And aggravation is the one we don't see as much as the other 3. And mainly because aggravation is you would have to have evidence that you went into service with a disability. Then we would have to evaluate what percentage was that disability at when you went into service. And then we have to order medical examinations, look at medical evidence, and see if it actually worsened due to service. So that's your 4th option. Could you go to the next slide, please, Jen? And excuse me while I take a sip. Okay, so you file a claim for disability compensation. How do you do it? Well, you can do it online. You could mail it. You could go to a VSO, which is a service org. They could help you. So once you do file that compensation claim, it's going to get uploaded into our VBMS system, and we're going to request your service treatment records, any personnel treatment records, any examinations that are needed for that claim, and then the VA will review all evidence of record and will decide the disability if it's service connected or not. And then once we make a decision, we will notify you with a decision letter. Next slide, please. Resources. So as mentioned, VSOs, Veteran Service Organizations. If you're ever unsure, and if you're new to filing a claim, or if you're not, I always recommend a VSO. This is a list right here of VSOs that you could go to. It's important that you do go to an accredited VSO to get assistance. Next slide, please. Next slide. Do you have anything on the PACT Act? Okay, great. So PACT Act was recently passed. It's legislation that we're in the works of getting ready for, training. And just to give you a quick rundown of what the PACT Act is, it expands and extends eligibility for VA healthcare for veterans with toxic exposures and veterans of the Vietnam, Gulf War, and post 9/11 era. There's 20 new, well, more than 20 new presumptive conditions for burn pits and other toxic exposures. Mainly those presumptive conditions are cancers and respiratory illnesses. It adds more presumptive exposure locations for Agent Orange and radiation. So for example, I mentioned Vietnam earlier as you needed evidence that you had boots on the ground. Well, that has expanded now to, for example, Thailand. I have a list right here. There's so many I had to take notes. I apologize. So it expanded locations to U.S. or Royal Thai military base in Thailand from 1962 to 1976. Laos from 1965 to 1969. Cambodia or Myanmar or Krek, Kampong Cham province from 1969. And we have Guam or America Samoa and Johnson Atoll with their respective dates. So that's with Agent Orange. It's expanded out. Before it was an expansion to blue water, and now it's expanded even outwards to Thailand. So for example, if my father, which served in Vietnam, he was in the Air Force stationed at a air base in Thailand. If he didn't have any evidence that he was in Vietnam and he had diabetes, he wouldn't be able to get service connection presumptive. But now that PACT Act has opened that up to air bases in Thailand, that opens the doors to so many more veterans that are deserving of presumptive service connection due to exposure to Agent Orange. So it requires, to move on, requires VA to provide a toxic exposure screening to every veteran enrolled in VA healthcare, and improves research, staff education, and treatment related to toxic exposure. And I believe I have one more slide, Jen. We could go. So it expands hiring and training of claims processors and healthcare providers to accommodate a significant increase in veterans claims. I can speak, anybody at our regional office knows I've been tackling lots of hiring this FY, and we expect probably to have to hire more people due to the PACT Act. So we're getting a lot of more hands, a lot of training, but it's much needed to help. We do expect an increase in claims. So that is directing our regional office has a significant impact, where we're gonna have more claims processors that process your claim in a timely fashion. It's automating processes of new claims related to toxic exposure conditions. A little bit of that. We are developing flashes that can basically flash a toxic exposure claim where we could rate it as fast as possible, and it's identified so it doesn't get lost with any other type of claim out there. But we're building our infrastructure capacity to meet new requirements and improving and expediting our process to ensure all toxic exposed veterans can fully access VA healthcare and benefits. And just one last thing, this was something I was reminded of not too long ago. I highly recommend any veteran, and pass the word to anybody that you believe this may impact, that it would be effective August 10th, 2022, if you believe that you have a disability that would be covered under the PACT Act, under the presumptive. There's going to be a 1-year liberalizing law, which means basically you could file a claim today or anywhere before August 10th of next year. And if there's evidence that you had that disability on August 10th or before August 10th, you could get an effective date of August 10th, which they make put it in simple terms, it's going to be able to give you more money because you get a retro payment back to August 10th. So again, if you feel like you've could get benefits due to the back Act, I highly recommend that you apply. If you're unsure, you can always reach out to a VSO or call our 1-800 number, which I'm sure Jennifer probably can add that if she hasn't already on her power slides. So that's all I have, Jennifer, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian. A lot of good information with regard to service connection as a whole, as well as the PACT Act, which is something that it affects everyone, all of our veterans, especially those who have served in Vietnam and recent conflicts. So again, thank you. Next, we will hear from Veterans Readiness and Employment. Jahmila Boswell, the floor is yours.
Good evening. Thank you. My name is Jahmila Boswell. I am the Assistant Veterans Readiness and Employment Officer for the Newark Regional Office. So just going to tell you guys a little bit about our program and the services that we provide to veterans. So if you could go to the next slide. All right. So the mission for our program is basically that our Veterans Readiness and Employment Program assists claimants, which could be veterans or service members, with service-connected disabilities, prepare for, obtain, and maintain suitable employment, and or live as independently as possible. Can you go to the next slide? All right, so our program is often most confused for or compared to the Chapter 33 GI Bill, which is a true education benefit. Our program itself is not going to be referred to by anyone in our program as an education benefit. We are employment first and foremost. So while we do provide the possibility for veterans to get, or service members to be trained in different areas, our most important piece of this outcome is their independence and re-entry back into employment. So basically, we as Veterans Readiness and Employment have a program that is consisted of 5 different tracks that you could fall into. So the different tracks of those are things such as reemployment track, which allows you to get started as soon as you're separated from the military or National Guard or reserves, to get back into that workplace if you already have skills and things that you could use. So that might not need significant training or reschooling, but sometimes it does come a piece of that. There's also the employment through long-term services, which is the piece that you would get the most education from, if that is what your plan for services is developed upon by your counselor and yourself. So this is where people get confused and think that Veterans Readiness and Employment is going to be sending you to school. The point of this track is to help individuals obtain the necessary skills for jobs and to help them with that cost while they're going through training. So that's tuition, fees, supplies, anything that is required for you to actually complete your training. And once you do that training, which could be at a school, it could be at a non-paid work experience, at an on-the-job training, or even an internship, our main function is to then help you get back into the workforce through employment. The options that we have that are most often referred to for the GI Bill are, we also do subsistence allowance, which will give you a monthly stipend to offset the cost while going to school. It is not something that is supposed to replace an income or anything like that. It's just because we know that it's there to help. School has a lot of different books, fees, clothes, all that transportation costs that go along with it. And then also the tuition itself, we do cover the tuition in full, and along with books. All books that are required for the courses are paid for by Voc Rehab, whereas GI Bill will only give you a portion of that. Basically, the other three tracks, would be independent living, which is for those who are not able to go to work quite at this time. It is to help them be able to gain more independence through life, following things as getting assistance with equipment from the medical field, the hospital, providing assistive devices, obtaining volunteer positions, and reconnecting with the local community. And we also have a self-employment track that is there to help guide individuals who have an interest and resources to start their own business. And that would be to help them develop a business plan, get set up with the Small Business Administration, and some other offset costs that might happen to occur. Next slide. So basically, our program is there to help individuals, service members or veterans who have service-connected disabilities and are having a hard time obtaining, maintain, and employment. So if you're having trouble, you are needing to be retrained, you're having really difficult time with your service-connected disabilities on the job, please consider applying for our program and speaking with a counselor who will be there to help understand your situation and figure out the best way to get you out and into something that is going to make you feel like a contributing member of society, and not aggravate any of the disabilities that you have. So if you have any other questions, you want to get some more information about our program, you can call our front desk, 973-297-3200. And then we also have our email address here should you have any questions for management to return. Thank you.
Thank you, Jahmila. A lot of good information, great program. If you are not already involved or weren't aware of this program, it is a great program for our veterans. Next, we'll hear from Human Resources, David Taylor. The floor is yours.
Good evening. Happy Tuesday evening. My name is David Taylor. I'm one of the Human Resources Liaisons at the Newark Regional Office, along with Jennie Santos. Before I go any further, I would like to thank Jennifer for giving me the opportunity and the platform to discuss our vacancies at the regional office. As a veteran myself, I really appreciate it, and I want to do anything I can to aid those that need it. Next slide, please. So these are our current vacancies. The couple updates to this is we do have our Veteran Service Representative rating position that is currently open until October 17th. We also have our Veteran Service Representative position that is currently open as well. The two key points I want to say is, first thing is there are also our hiring initiatives with these vacancies to include veterans who are receiving service compensation and 30% service compensation veterans. And secondly, veterans who have spouses who may be looking for employment as well. Some of the vacancies that we plan to have open within before the end of the year are our authorization quality review specialists, our rating quality review specialists, legal admin specialists, and more VSR vacancies with the hiring that we've had over the last couple days. Next slide, please. This is basically our hiring initiatives. Our goal, as I stated earlier, and as Brian was stating, and along with Jahmila, is to disseminate these vacancies to as many veterans as possible throughout the state of New Jersey and elsewhere, because some of the positions don't require you to be in office every day. We do have some other veterans initiatives within the next couple months that we will be a part of. But I would like to say that this is only going to be successful if we share the information, right? So it's one thing to have the vacancies and to be looking to hire veterans, but if we're not sharing the information with veterans groups, veterans who are maybe in need, or veterans who may not be in need, who may know other veterans who may be looking for employment, then this will not be successful. As Brian also stated, with the PACT Act, we are expecting to have more jobs at the Newark Regional Office, more vacancies, meaning that we will be looking to our partners, our stakeholders, and any sort of outreach programs that we have to hire even more veterans than we are right now. Next slide, please. To date, fiscal year 22, 17 veterans hired at the Newark Regional Office, to include myself. I just started at the Newark Regional Office in June. So I am living proof that it does work. So I do appreciate that. And on behalf of the director, Francis-Abdullah, it is also one of her top priorities as well, to ensure that we recruit and we reach as many veterans as possible. Next slide. And this is the last slide. This is my information, my counterpart, Jennie Santos' information as well. And like I stated in the beginning, appreciate the time. And Jennifer, thank you for the opportunity to share the vacancies through this platform.
Thank you, David. We appreciate the information about job opportunities at the Newark Regional Office. Next, we will hear from Karen Condon from the Philadelphia Pension Management Center, PMC. Karen, the floor is yours.
Hi, everybody. My name is Karen Condon. I'm a supervisor at the regional office in Philadelphia within the Pension Management Center. We process claims for survivors right now, and but I'll be talking a little bit about veterans pension as well. So I'm just going to provide an overview of the pension program that's available to both veterans and to the veteran survivors, and touch on the aid and attendance, DIC, and burial benefits. Next slide. Okay, the pension program is a needs-based benefit paid to wartime veterans because of permanent and total disability, or who are 65 years of age or older. Entitlement is based on veterans' character of discharge, wartime and active duty service requirements, income and net worth limits as well. The veteran must have an honorable discharge and have served a certain amount of time on active duty, one day of which must fall within the wartime period. So for the income limits, currently the maximum annual income limit for a veteran with a spouse is $19,320. There is also a net worth limit, and right now that's $138,489. This means the total assets must not exceed the $138,489. That excludes the primary residence and the annual income, and it's less any medical expenses that must not exceed the $19,320. For calendar year 2022, the highest available pension benefit rate for a veteran with a spouse with aid and attendance is $2,431 per month. Aid and attendance is not a standalone benefit. It's added to the pension award. To qualify for the aid in attendance, the veteran requires help with 2 activities of daily living or is a patient in a nursing home. So for the veterans pension, the application form is the VA form 21P527EZ. And again, that's for a live veterans pension. As far as our survivors pension, this too is lower, has a lower income threshold that lower than the veterans pension, and the rules and are substantially the same for the veterans. The surviving spouse must not have remarried after the veteran's death, and there's no minimum age or disability requirement for the surviving spouse. I'm sorry, am I mute? Was I muted?
You're good, we can hear you.
Okay. Entitlement is based on the veteran's character of discharge, wartime and active duty service requirements, and is subject to income and net worth limits. Currently, the maximum annual income for a surviving spouse is $9,896. The net worth limit is $138,489. This means the total of the surviving spouse's assets must not exceed the $138,489. And again, that excludes their primary residence, the annual income, and it's less the medical expenses. For calendar year 2022, the highest available pension benefit rate for a surviving spouse with aid in attendance allowance is $1,318 per month. The form to apply for the survivor's pension is VA form 21P534EZ. Next slide. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about DIC. It's dependency and indemnity compensation. These are benefits are monthly where the veteran was deemed to have died from a service-connected illness or injury. The cause of death on the death certificate has to be able to somehow be tracked back to something that happened during the veteran's time in service. DIC benefits are also payable in several other situations, including when the veteran had a total disabling service-connected condition for at least 10 years immediately prior to his death. And in all cases for survivors, this DIC will be the highest benefit paid. So if they are eligible, the surviving spouses for DIC and survivor's pension, DIC will always be the greater benefit. Again, this form is a 21P534EZ as well. So you can actually apply for DIC, survivor's pension, and accrued benefits all on one application. And next slide. Okay, and the last benefit I just want to talk about is the burial allowances. There's a few different ones: service-connected burial, non-service-connected burial, VA hospitalization, death burial, plot or intermittent burial allowance, and transportation allowance. The burial application form consists of burial, plot, and transportation benefits. It's important that we define the term burial. For VA benefits purposes, the term burial refers to the funeral expenses. The term plot refers to cemetery expenses, and the term transportation refers to the costs associated with moving the veteran. The second important thing we want to stress here is the difference between service-connected and non-service-connected burial. Oftentimes the survivors, when they're filling out the forms, will make a mistake and check off the service-connected burial benefits because thinking that their spouse was in the service, but that's really not the case. In order to get the service-connected burial, the veteran would have had to die from a service-connected disability. So just make sure if you're filling out a form that you're checking off all the right boxes for the burial benefits. And this form is the VA Form 21P 530EZ. And the next slide is just information on where you can send your claims to the Janesville, Wisconsin address and our number 1-800-827-1000. And that's all I have for you tonight.
Thank you. Thank you, Karen. We appreciate that information with regard to the Pension Management Center. And for everyone on the line, the 1-800-827-1000 number is a good number to have handy in the event you have any questions regarding VA benefits, to include service connection compensation or pension benefits. Again, that number is 1-800-827-1000. Again, 1-800-827-1000. Or you can go to www.va.gov. Again, www.va.gov. Unfortunately, this evening, we do not have a representative from the New Jersey VA healthcare system on the line. However, we do have information available. Healthcare eligibility. For general questions, you can dial 1-877-222-8387. Again, for general questions with regard to healthcare eligibility, 1-877-222-8387. For CHAMP VA and TRICARE Veterans Dependents, 1-800-733-8387. Again, 1-800-733-8387. For caregiver support, 1-855-260-3274. Again, caregiver support, 1-855-260-3274. And for healthcare billing, any billing questions, 1-888-440-9587. Again, 1-888-440-9587. Next, we're going to hear from Jason, who is from the Washington Crossing National Cemetery. He's going to talk about cemetery services and benefits. Jason, the floor is yours.
Good evening, and thank you for the invite, and it's a pleasure to be here. I'm not going to hold everybody long, just going to go over a brief overview of the benefits that are offered at the National Cemetery Administration. We can go to the next slide. A lot of people don't know that the National Cemetery Administration is a part of the Department of Veteran Affairs, and it's the final resting place for eligible veterans and their loved ones and dependent children. They also provide support to state veteran cemeteries as well. Next slide. NCA maintains over 3.8 million grave sites nationally. Now, Washington Crossing oversees 5 cemeteries, 2 in New Jersey, 1 which is Beverly National Cemetery, Finns Point National Cemetery, 2 in Philadelphia, Mount Moriah and Philadelphia National Cemetery, and Washington Crossing, which is the newest cemetery in the area. Next slide. So the basic eligibility to be buried in the National Cemetery is after 1980, you need a minimum of 2 years. If you're service connected, you automatically qualify. Prior to 1980, you only needed 2 days of active duty service to have retired from the reserves or to have received a medical discharge from the basic training and had be under honorable conditions to be buried at a national cemetery. Reservists on their cells just with the 6 year are not eligible unless they were deployed on presidential orders. Next slide. You obviously have to be a U.S. citizen, but that doesn't apply to the spouse. The spouse are eligible for the same benefit as the veteran, even if the veteran was not buried in a national cemetery. Or if a veteran is buried at one national cemetery and the spouse moves, that spouse can be buried at a different national cemetery as long as there's space there for burial. For minor children and children that are in full-time in college that have passed away, they're also eligible to be buried with their parents, and there is no charge for any services rendered. Next slide. At Washington Crossing, we have a full-time honor guard, like the Guardians, that provide benefits to the family, in addition to the taps and rifle fire, and the military would fold the flag. This is not a benefit that's offered at every national cemetery, but we're fortunate to have a veteran group that support the cemetery since day one. Next slide. There are some people that aren't permitted, like if you get a divorce, you aren't eligible for burial. If you get remarried, you're not eligible for burial. Next slide. So there is nothing that's done at the time of need. There's nothing that you can do in advance. Everything's done when someone passed. I always encourage people to talk to their funeral director and make arrangements. It's an uncomfortable conversation that people don't want to have, but I come across people every day and they give us a call, my dad died, and they don't have the discharge. So which can cause delays, even though we try to expedite it. There are a lot of veterans whose records were burned in fires, and then the records have to be searched from the National Personnel Record Center. So I always encourage people to meet with a funeral director, give them a copy of their discharge. Most funeral homes are familiar with the process. And at the time of need, the only thing the family has to do is give the funeral director a copy of the DD-214 or whatever discharge paperwork they may have. If they don't have any paperwork at all, we still encourage them to provide the social to the funeral home, and the scheduling and eligibility office would do the research, usually within a week, to make sure that those veterans are eligible and scheduled for burial. There is a pre-needs program where you can fill out a form, and that form, the 40-1007, they'll send you a letter to mail letting you know of your status for burial. But this is geared more towards people that have other than honorable discharges, or people that may have been in the reserves and had some active duty time and wanted to see if they were eligible. Next slide. Once again, going to scheduling. If a loved one passes, they contact the funeral home. The funeral home will work with the scheduling and the cemetery to make arrangements that once the family arrives, they are entitled to a 30-minute committal service. That is different at some other national cemeteries based on their volume of burials. The family is entitled to a free headstone and marker, and that depends on the cemeteries. Some cemeteries have different type of markers. They're entitled to a crypt, as well as the perpetual care of the cemetery for the rest of their life. Next slide. At Washington Crossing, we offer casket burials in the ground, as well as cremation in the ground with an upright headstone, where you see in the picture, as well as a columbarium wall, which is fairly new, where veterans and their spouse and their loved ones can place their loved one into the wall and they get a marble plaque instead of the traditional in-ground cremation. Next slide. We also have a Facebook page. You can just look at Washington Crossing, where we offer pictures, because a lot of people don't know about a veteran cemetery, especially when there hasn't been one open in the area for over 30 years, so that people can be familiar with the services that we offer. Next slide. Going back, we do the 30-minute committal services, the military honors, the flags, the taps. We work with the military to make sure that every family receives the honors during their committal service, and the families are more than welcome to bring clergy as well. Next slide. Next slide.
And that was your last slide.
Last slide.
Yes.
Is probably the most efficient service that the government or the VA offers. It's one number that the family can call to make arrangements and have that done within an hour, 99% of the time. It's a conversation people do not want to have, but it's good for planning. And even just being on a job here, I was allowed me to help family members in my family to push them toward those benefits, because I grew up around a national cemetery, walked through it many times and never knew it was there. And now being here, you know, and being able to be in the community, there's still a lot of veterans that don't know that they are entitled, they may be entitled to a free burial with no charges. And that can, especially these days with inflation, that can definitely help. And it also helps that the veterans to be laid at rest with the other veterans, because we always try to say it's more like a family than a traditional cemetery. But I appreciate the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Jason. Very helpful information with regard to the services that are provided at Washington Crossing and at other national cemeteries. Very important information to have. And one of the takeaways I would say is for families, don't wait. Get that, wouldn't you say, getting that information to your dependent family members, your spouse, dependents, and when I say information, that 214, that important information to help at the time of the passing to get things moving along expeditiously is helpful. So that 214 is critical, correct?
It is the most important thing, because it can be from a day, you can setting everything up to over a week at some possibility.
Wow. Well, thanks again. Thank you for taking the time to join us. Next, we're going to hear from New Jersey Department of Military and Veterans Affairs, State Services to Veterans. Joe Bucco, the floor is yours.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Let me put my video on. Come on. How come I don't see me?
We see you, Joe.
You see me, but
We
I don't see
do.
me. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm glad you can see me, because I don't see me.
You're
Anyway.
good.
I know what I look like. Thank you very much for this opportunity to be here tonight there, Jennifer. Appreciate it. My name is Joe Bucco. I am a state supervisor for our veteran service officers in North Jersey. And as Jennifer likes to say, all our veteran service officers for our department are accredited veteran service officers with the General Counsel's Office of the VA. Next slide. Okay, the New Jersey Department of Military and Veterans Affairs. I'm not going to read all this because you can see it. We try to assign a VSO to each county. If there is not, we have 14 veteran service officers throughout the state offices. Some VSOs do double duty. For example, our VSO up in Sussex County also serves the veterans in Morris County. And our VSO in Bergen County also serves the veterans in Passaic County. We are right now looking to expand our veteran service offices. We're looking for office space right now in Passaic County so we can have a dedicated VSO for that area. And we have a satellite office in the VA Medical Center, which is going to be a full-time office shortly. And we are working with the VA VHA to obtain an office on the Lions campus. Okay, next slide. As you can see, there's the addresses and locations of the current veteran service offices that we have in the New Jersey Department of Military and Veterans Affairs. Next slide. In addition to our veteran service offices, the New Jersey Department of Military and Veterans Affairs also operates 3 veteran memorial homes. Basically, they're nursing homes for veterans. They allow the spouses of veterans also to be residents at the veterans' homes. And they recently updated the application we had a lot of complaints about the application process. It was quite voluminous. So we have a new director for our veterans homes, and she went through and updated the application so it's not as overwhelming as the previous application. Next slide, please. The locations of those veterans homes are one's up in Paramus. We have one in Menlo Park, and we have another one down in Vineland, New Jersey. Next slide. We operate 2 transitional housing units for homeless veterans. One is located up in Glen Gardner, North Jersey. It's on a hilltop in the old Hagedorn Psychiatric Center. I don't know if you're familiar with that area, but it's on the mountaintop overlooking Spruce Run Reservoir. A really beautiful facility. They have the ability to take care of 100 veterans. Right now, due to staffing, they can handle 75, but they're equipped to do 100. It's a long-term program where veterans receive rehabilitation services and job training. They can stay there for up to 2 years and longer if necessary. The whole idea is to help them get a job and to live in the outside community. And once they do get a job, they can stay in Vets Haven until they can accumulate enough money in a savings account so they can go out and live comfortably in the local economy. Next slide. Oh, I forgot to say the other location is in Winslow Town. Oh, there it is right there, better in the south, in Winslow Township, down in South Jersey. Excuse me. Next slide. We also operate Brigadier General William C. Doyle Cemetery. It is a nationally recognized state veteran cemetery. And like Jason mentioned before, we can pre-register veterans. If you are eligible to be interred at the state cemetery, we highly encourage that, and you intend to be interred there, you can pre-register. We highly encourage that so that when the time comes, you don't run into those problems like Jason mentioned, where you don't have a DD 214 and you know everybody has to jump through hoops to try to accommodate the deceased veteran. We also have a columbarium there for ashes for veterans, and again, the spouse of the veteran also is eligible to be buried there. And reserve members who accrued 20 years of reserve service and are eligible for military retired pay are also eligible for burial at the cemetery. Next slide. Yeah, it talks about legal residence. You need to establish that you have lived at least 50% of your life in the state of New Jersey. We do get calls from people, a lot of retirees move south to Florida, and they want to be interred back up here in New Jersey. And, we need to have documentation to show that they did spend the majority of their adult life in New Jersey in order to be eligible to be buried here. Next slide. There's the location of the cemetery. If you've never visited, I'm sorry. If you never visited the cemetery, I highly encourage you to take a trip there. It's a beautiful cemetery. To get there, if you've ever been to Great Adventure, it's about 5 miles south of Great Adventure off of 537. Right there, you make a right on Province Line Road, and it's about a 3/4 of a mile down the road on the left-hand side. And it's really a beautiful cemetery. Next slide. Other services here. What do you got here? Oh, okay. Civil service preference for veterans and disabled veterans, civil service preference. We also have a section in our Veterans Benefits Bureau that if you want to get veterans preference for state civil service jobs, you would apply to the VBB office to get the civil service preference for retirement also. If you work for a state agency and you want to get the civil service preference for retirement, they calculate veterans' retirements differently than they do regular state employees. So it's beneficial to make sure that you're registered as a veteran if you are a state employee. If you have any questions about any of the services that we provide, you can send an email to the Veterans Benefits Bureau. Very simple. It's VBB, Victor Bravo Bravo, at dmava.nj.gov. And somebody will return whatever question you may have. Next slide.
That was your last slide, Joe.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Jennifer. And I have 100 days till I retire.
All right. Good for you. Congratulations on your retirement. You will be missed. But I know this is well deserved, well earned. So congratulations on your upcoming retirement.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Next, we will hear from Guy Vanderpool from the Vet Center. Guy, the floor is yours.
Yes, good evening. Can you go to the first slide? Okay, the Vet Centers, basically what we offer is talk therapy or counseling. We do individual and group counseling. And the thing that separates us is that we also, we can do couples counseling and family counseling. Can you go to the next slide? There's a ton of services that we offer. I like to consider us a one-stop shop. If we can't help you with what you need, we can hopefully point you in the right direction, gladly connect you with any of the resources that you may need dealing with anything dealing with the VA. Next slide. The thing that separates us is that there's you're not required to be enrolled in VA healthcare in order to use the Vet Center services. You'll never receive a bill. The services are free and unlimited. So if you need to come once, twice, or every week for 50 years, I might not be here personally, but the Vet Centers will. All right, next slide. The major difference between us and the formal VA, we're part of the VA, but we operate independently, just like technically the Marines are part of the Navy and operate independently. Your records stay with the Vet Centers. The only time we release information is if we have a duty to warn. Okay. Next slide. There are 5 locations for Vet Centers in New Jersey. We cover from mid-Jersey up to northern New Jersey. The Vet Centers out of Philadelphia cover the southern parts of New Jersey. Next slide, please. We also have, my office is in Bloomfield, but we have outstations in Oakland, Morristown, and Hackettstown. So the Vet Centers, we're out in the community, but we also have outstations that we usually man 1 or 2 days a week. Next slide. This is just our staff. Next slide. And this is our contact information. I just want to say that I've been with the VA or the Vet Centers for 18 years now, and I vouch for everybody who spoke tonight, pretty much. I've gone to the regional office plenty of times. I've spoken to every one of the briefers, just about every one of the briefers, and they will go above and beyond to help you. So please, if you need anything, they're more than willing to help you out. These are great people. It's made made my job a lot easier. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you, Guy. We appreciate it. So this evening, we heard from our leadership. We heard a lot of great information from our presenters, VBA. We heard about service connection, disability compensation, as well as the PACT Act. We've heard from the Veterans Readiness and Employment Program, those benefits which are to help our veterans get back into the workforce. We received information about employment opportunities from HR. We also heard from the Pension Management Center about survivor benefits, non-service connection, pension, and burial benefit. We heard from the National Cemetery Administration about the services available to veterans as well as family members with regard to burial at our national cemeteries. We also heard from the New Jersey Department of Military and Veterans Affairs regarding state benefits, and closed out with the Vet Center and hearing about the services they offer with regard to readjustment counseling and to veterans as well as their family members. So I want to take this opportunity to thank everybody for their information, for the presentation and their time. I'm going to turn it over to our director for closing comments, and then we'll stop recording and open the floor for questions. Madam Director.
Thank you, Jennifer. So outstanding presentations, everyone. Once again, we want to thank you all for taking the time to share this beneficial information to the folks on the call and anyone else who will be listening and seeing at a later time. We sincerely thank you all for your service, your time, and today's information. It was wonderful. I'm going to turn it back over to you, Jennifer, and hopefully we can see if we have any questions or any concerns out there that we can answer or speak to. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. So with that said, this concludes the question and this concludes the presentation portion. I'm now going to turn over to Holly.
Yeah, what I'm just going to remind everybody before we stop recording, just that this presentation will be available on Operation Sisterhood YouTube channel. And also to let you know that we do have, I think, some of these slides that would be available if somebody wanted follow-up information or phone numbers, that kind of thing. Right, Jen?
That is correct. The slide deck will be made available, and this slide deck includes phone numbers as well as fax numbers, addresses, and websites.
Terrific. And with that, Jen, I'm going to stop recording and we can proceed to the question and answer portion of the program.
Awesome. Thank you. The floor is now open for questions.
1 second, Jen. Let me make sure that the recording has stopped.